Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's interview to Al Arabiya television has created headlines and front-page news right across India. And this is because in that interview, he reached out to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, offering serious and sincere talks to resolve burning issues like Kashmir and the other historic problems that divide India and Pakistan. So after yesterday's front-page headlines in India, we asked, was Prime Minister Sharif serious, or is he possibly playing to the political gallery? That's one of the many issues I shall raise today with the chairman of Pakistan's National Assembly's Committee of Defense and former Minister for Information and Broadcasting and former Communication Minister, Senator Mushahid Hussain. Senator Hussain joins me from Islamabad. Senator Hussain, on Monday, in an interview to the Dubai-based channel Al Arabiya, your Prime Minister seemed to reach out to India when he said, and I'm quoting him, "My message to the Indian leadership and Prime Minister Modi is that let's sit down on the table and have serious and sincere talks to resolve our burning issues like Kashmir. It is up to us to live peacefully and make progress, or quarrel with each other and waste time and resources." So let me start by asking, do you personally view this as a serious attempt to improve relations, or is Prime Minister Sharif playing to the political gallery at home and perhaps seeking plaudits from Al Arabiya?
Greetings from Islamabad and a very happy new year to your viewers, Mr. Thapar. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. No, there's no doubt that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is quite serious in this overture to India. And the feeling in Islamabad is that there is a changing regional and global context. Regional hands should shape the region's future. And as it is with the conflict all around, even globally in Europe now, vis-a-vis Ukraine, for the first time in 25 years, you see Pakistan, India, and China have a similar position on an issue of geopolitics like Ukraine, for example. And last year, it was a gesture from Mr. Modi to which Pakistan responded, the LOC ceasefire. That initiative came from India. And now we feel with the onset of the new year, perhaps we can also take this initiative, provided India is really sincere in reciprocity, including discussion on Kashmir. And also we feel the timing is right because a year down the line, you will have elections in India, and also our friends in some of the Gulf countries like the United Arab Emirates, who have very close relationship with Pakistan and equally good relations with India. They're also encouraging this process.
I hear what you say. A, that Prime Minister Sharif is serious. B, that there is a feeling in Pakistan that there is a need for change and that Pakistan is deliberately taking an initiative in 2023. But let me tell you the problem. Hours after the interview was broadcast, your Prime Minister's office issued a series of tweets stating that the reversal of the revocation of Article 370, which happened in August 2019, is a condition for talks. This is what those tweets said. Without India's revocation of this step, negotiations are not possible. But you know, And the world knows that the Narendra Modi government will not reverse this step. So where does that leave this so-called serious and sincere offer to resolve burning issues? This condition scuppers the offer at the outset.
Not at all. In our view, that wrongs are reversed, sometimes through military means, as happened in Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion and occupation, and also during the American period there when they sent a force to quell the Taliban uprising. And also we feel that this is something which India did on 5th of August 2019 that has upset the regional apple cart. China has become a de facto party to the dispute. Indo-Chinese relations have worsened because of this one action of Mr. Modi and the subsequent statements made from the Indian leadership, which were rather bellicose about Gilgit-Baltistan, Azad Kashmir, and Aksai Chin. And then also the Kashmiri people, whether it's the Kashmiri resistance, whether it's the mainstream Kashmiri leadership, even the so-called pro-Indian Kashmiri leaders, they've all rejected what Mr. Modi has done. So we feel that status quo is unacceptable to the people of Kashmir, and it is the biggest impediment to durable peace, security, and stability in the region.
Let me ask you a simple question. Do you personally, does your government, because you're a member of Prime Minister Sharif's party, and does the country, all three, you, yourself, the government, and the country, really believe that Prime Minister Modi will reverse the revocation and abrogation of Article 370? Because this government is so completely committed to what it's done and so proud of what it's done that it will be a huge setback and reversal and embarrassment for Prime Minister Modi to reverse that step. So do you really believe he'll do it? Or are you simply saying this because you have to support a condition laid down by your PMO?
Well, look here, this has been a stated position of Pakistan, irrespective of who is in office, whether it was previously Mr. Imran Khan and right now it is Mr. Shehbaz Sharif. And secondly, I think there's no pride in occupying or annexing a disputed territory. Look at what is happening in Ukraine. The Russians tried that, and now they occupied Crimea while India occupied Kashmir. And of course, there are international double standards on that one, but that is not gelling, that is not working, and it won't work also. So what we are saying is, let us create a conducive atmosphere for talks that can lead to some kind of a modus vivendi on Kashmir, alleviate the sufferings of the Kashmiri people, get the Kashmiri political prisoners released, and let's start talking to each other rather than talking at each other, which we have been doing for the last 3.5 years. It's a dialogue of the deaf. So let's get cracking and move on in 2023.
Everyone in India will accept that India and Pakistan need to talk to each other, not at each other. But let me put to you what the Modi government may well be willing to do. The Modi government has committed itself at some stage, they haven't said when, to restoring full statehood to Jammu and Kashmir. As you know, when Article 370 was revoked in August 2019, at that same time, the state was reduced to a union territory. But both the Prime Minister and the Home Minister have repeatedly said that they are committed to restoring full statehood. It may, it's speculated, happen whenever elections are held. Those elections could be held sometime this year as well. Would that be sufficient for Pakistan, rather than insisting on the revocation of the abrogation of Article 370? Because the first, restoration of statehood, is something the government is committed to in India. The second is not only something they would refuse to do, it would be embarrassing for them to do. So would restoration of statehood be sufficient?
Well, I would say that 2-3 things. Number one, as I said, the status quo cannot hold, and it's not sustainable. And I think the Kashmir issue is the biggest impediment in India's rise. If they didn't have this dispute with the Kashmiri people and with Pakistan, today India would probably be in the UN Security Council as a permanent member or part of the nuclear suppliers group. So, or Shashi Tharoor would probably have been the UN Secretary General instead of somebody else. But it's Kashmir which is blocking India's natural rise as an Asian country. Secondly, I think there's always a distinction, a fine one at that, which you'd understand, between posturing and policy. And if I were as a well-wisher of peace and security in India, in the region, and one who was the architect of the first track 2 in 1984 when I was a journalist, India-Pakistan.
We've lost your voice at this moment, Senator Saab. I think you've gone to mute. Senator Saab, we've gone to mute. Senator Hussain?
Here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. We lost you in between. Please carry on. Pick up. We lost about 30 seconds.
Yes. Yes. And as a person who has been an architect of the Pakistan-India Track 2, which I started as a journalist way back in 1984, and it was a very successful initiative in Islamabad in April 84, I'd say that Mr. Modi should do a Vajpayee on this one. What did he say, Mr. Vajpayee, in December 2000? He said, let us resolve Kashmir issue, the conflict, on the basis of insaniyat, humanity, Jamhuriyat, democracy, and Kashmiriyat, the Kashmiri identity. For example, so these are broad principles. I don't want to quibble on legalities or commas and colons. We're talking at the big picture.
Absolutely. And I think your answer, even though we lost you for 30 seconds, is a very, very important one for audiences in India and Pakistan to hear. And I'll repeat the key point you said. You said Kashmir is the biggest impediment to India's rise. Kashmir is blocking India's natural rise as a nation country. And you also said that Mr. Modi should borrow from Prime Minister Vajpayee and resolve the Kashmir problem. And the other interesting thing in your answer, although I accept that for 30 seconds we lost you, is that you didn't say no to my suggestion. Can restoration of statehood be sufficient without revocation of the abrogation of 370? I won't push you further because I think the ambiguity that you left is very important. Let me raise something else with you instead. And this was picked up by Indian papers, also by former Indian diplomats who served in Pakistan. The interesting thing is in that Al Arabiya interview, Prime Minister Sharif did not explicitly lay down the condition of reversing the abrogation of Article 370. He merely referred to the autonomy Kashmiris have lost when 370 was abrogated. That explicit condition about Article 370 was introduced later by the PMO in their tweets. And so the thought that occurred to many in India, did the PMO tweet slightly changing the Prime Minister's position because the Prime Minister had received flack either from the army or possibly he was worried about the response from Imran Khan's PTI and therefore covered his track by suddenly introducing a condition he had not explicitly laid down in the interview?
I would say that there was need for strategic clarity. Sometimes politicians or political leaders make statements, and if there is any room for ambiguity on such a key issue as Kashmir, that clarification was called for because it is a restatement of Pakistan's consistent position. But you referred to two aspects. Mr. Imran Khan was the one who tweeted as Prime Minister that perhaps if Mr. Modi wins the election in 2019, there'll be a greater opportunity to secure a durable peace, including a Kashmir settle between India and Pakistan. And don't forget, till recently, till 29th November, Pakistan had an army chief, General Bajwa, who was very keen himself for this rapprochement with India. And he, in fact, started, along with Mr. Modi, by the way, back channel on a couple of issues where the intelligence boys of both sides or the spooks from the two sides were meeting each other in different locations, including Dubai or Bangkok. And they were talking to each other on serious substantive issues, which resulted in the ceasefire on the line of control in January 2020. January 2021. So you see, as far as the Pakistan army is concerned, whether it's the Pakistan army, whether it's the political forces, and whether it's civil society, there's a broad consensus in Pakistan regarding relations with India or relations with the region. And mind you, Mr. Thapar, unlike India, where Pakistan bashing sells politically, India bashing has not been an issue in Pakistan's elections since 1990. For the last 7-8 elections, 1990, 93, 97, 2002, 2008, 2013, 2018. Oh yes, America bashing sells still, but not India bashing. So we are at ease with that because we both have the nuclear capability. There's a certain national self-confidence in the Pakistani state and the people. Let's talk to India. Let's talk about commerce, cricket, culture, and on a basis of equality, reciprocity, and resolution of key issues, not burying them under the carpet.
You mentioned the army. You specifically talked about the former Army Chief General Bajwa. Does his successor, the new Army Chief General Asim Munir, endorse and support what the Prime Minister said to Al Arabiya? You pointed out yourself that in 2021, General Bajwa not only was influential in the back channel which restored the 2003 ceasefire, and it's worked very effectively since then, but General Bajwa also wanted to improve trade between the two countries. He saw the relationship more in terms of what he called geoeconomics rather than geostrategy. Unfortunately, the Imran Khan government failed to follow through. So does General Munir both share the Prime Minister's interview sentiments, but also General Bajwa, his predecessor's belief that trade between the two countries must improve and must restart?
The only difference would be that General Bajwa was eager on trade without a concurrent progress or alleviation of sufferings of the Kashmiri people. And I think that when we talk of relationships with India and Pakistan, you can't compartmentalize and segment and put them in silos that, okay, trade can go on while repression in Kashmir continues. So it's there has to be a concurrent progress where people see visible signs of the progress and at least alleviation of sufferings. But as far as the issue of Kashmir is concerned, whether it's the army as an institution, whether it's the government, or whether it's the political forces, including the opposition, there's a broad consensus. I think on three issues, there's a consensus in Pakistan: Kashmir, nuclear program, and relations with China and CPEC, on which there's a strategic consensus between the what I call the Khaki and the Mufti, the civilian side and the military side, the armed forces and the political forces, and there's strategic clarity on that.
But you made a very important point. There is a subtle but important difference, and it's not that subtle actually either, between General Munir's position and his predecessor, General Bajwa's position. General Bajwa, as you said, was keen and eager to improve trade relations without necessarily any corresponding change or improvement on the Kashmir front. General Munir wants to link the two. As you said, there must be some forward movement on Kashmir to permit forward movement on trade. That is a critical and important difference between the former army chief and the present army chief.
When the first statement made by General Asim Munir Shah as Chief of Army Staff after taking over, he took over on 29th of November, and his first visit was on 3rd December to the line of control, and where he talked very clearly about relations with India and also on the Kashmir issue. So I think there is a strategic clarity on that, and that strategic clarity is reflected in all tiers of our government, civil or military.
Let's come back to what Prime Minister Sharif said to Al Arabiya. He said, and I'm quoting him, "We have had 3 wars with India, and they have only brought more misery, poverty, and unemployment to the people." And then he added immediately, "We have learnt our lesson, and we want to live in peace with India." Tell me, how do you interpret that phrase, "we have learnt our lesson"? What did the Prime Minister mean when he said that?
I think there was a poor choice of words. And basically by we, he meant the royal we, not just Pakistan, but India and Pakistan together. He meant the subcontinent, that the 1.5 billion people living in the subcontinent have learned their lessons, that wars do not resolve issues. And the larger issues are that of the war on poverty, the war on a better quality of life. And now fighting when we are both nuclear powers is a no-brainer. It won't solve any problems. But it didn't really apply only to Pakistan. It meant both sides, because even for India also, the lessons have been learned that they can't subjugate or subdue or browbeat Pakistan into submission. And size doesn't equal strength. So I think that perhaps that poor choice of words led to some misinterpretation. But basically, as I said, it was a reference to the royal we, not we just Pakistan, the we as Pakistan, India, and the subcontinent.
Tell me, has that, what you call poor choice of words, upset your army? Has it rankled with the army?
It's not an issue of army. Pakistan's public opinion is very robust. I think we are still one of the freest Muslim democracies where there's a lot of vibrance among civil society and among activism. And you can see from our media also, there are no holy cows anymore. Unlike India, where holy cows are still there. Anything goes in Pakistan, in today's Pakistan. So I think that public opinion matters. The Kashmir cause is paramount, and whether it's the military as a subordinate institution of the federal government, or whether it's the political forces in parliament also. For example, on trade, when General Bajwa mentioned about trade, there was criticism of that. I was one of those who was criticizing that. People's Party criticized that. Other political forces criticized that. So it's not just the army. The people of Pakistan matter, and public opinion on Kashmir does matter a lot.
Now, in the Al Arabiya interview, Prime Minister Sharif also reached out to the ruler of the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. He said, and I'm quoting your Prime Minister, he, meaning the Sheikh, can play a very important role to bring the two countries to the talking table. And then Prime Minister Sharif very importantly added, I give my word of honor that we will be talking to Indians with sincerity of purpose. Now, you know and I know that the UAE and Sheikh Mohammed are very close to both India and Pakistan. So was this reference to him an attempt to establish that Prime Minister Sharif is serious and sincere, or was he really looking for third-party intervention, which, as you know, is something India would find very difficult to accept? Which of the two?
Well, I would say, just aside, India accepts third-party intervention when it suits them. For example, when it's on their side, when it's on their behalf, or when it's to their positive interest and positive results. But having said that, you see, the UAE is one country which is very close among the Arab countries and Gulf countries to India also. So if the UAE is an honest broker, only in facilitating the talks, the feeling would be that there's credibility in Delhi of UAE, there's credibility in Islamabad of UAE. But remember, we are not talking of, and let me clarify that, of the Abraham Accords model. That does not apply in South Asia's case, because that was a different scenario where they reached out to Israel, UAE, and some other Arab countries. What we are basically saying it, and don't forget the LOC also, ceasefire, was also courtesy. The road to Delhi and Islamabad was going through Abu Dhabi. They were the ones who started those talks, and they sent messages and signals to both sides. And UAE under Sheikh Mohammed, who is also known as MBZ, has a very robust foreign policy which stretches from the Gulf, South Asia, to the shores of the Eastern Mediterranean, and even to Libya and Yemen and so forth. So they are, as friends of Pakistan, and if they say they can play a role, we are willing to accept their role. And their role would be something which has credibility in Islamabad as well.
If I heard your answer correctly, you believe that the UAE, because it is close to both countries, can play a role facilitating talks, not necessarily mediating, which is where you made the distinction between the Abrahamic Accords and the relationship. And you also pointed out that this sort of facilitation is what the UAE did, and which was confirmed, if I recall correctly, by the UAE's ambassador in Washington, when India and Pakistan agreed to revive and more honestly stand by the 2003 ceasefire. That happened last year in January, February 2021. So there is a precedent to the UAE facilitating, but not...
Absolutely. That's the role as an honest broker with credibility on both sides, and which can play the role of a facilitator in bringing the two sides together on the conference table.
Now, there's something else your Prime Minister said to Al Arabiya. He said, and I'm quoting him, let's be very blunt. Even if we are not neighbors by choice, we are there forever, and it is up to us to live peacefully. That, he added and repeated, is up to us. And then later he said, we are nuclear powers armed to the teeth. And if, God forbid, a war breaks out, who will live to tell what happened? Does this mean that one of the Prime Minister's motivations is the geographic and nuclear reality of the two countries? We are neighboring nuclear powers, neighboring nuclear countries, and we cannot afford to have serious threatening differences between us. Is that one of Prime Minister Sharif's motivations?
I think this is a commonsensical statement, it's a plain home truth. I'm reminded of the statement which in 1988, when Iran and Iraq were finally going to have peace talks, Saddam Hussein made to his Revolutionary Command Council. He said, look here, when people opposed the rapprochement with Iran, he said, look here, there has been no crane which has been invented which can lift Iran out of our neighborhood and take it away to some other part of the world in Africa or South Pacific. They are our neighbors. This is the reality. We'll have to live with each other. And now we have to live in peace with each other. So that was his mantra when he convinced his own colleagues in the Baath party then to have peace with Khomeini's Iran. So I would say that same principle applies in our region as well. We feel the problem has been more with India. It's large in size, but the vision has been very small and it's acting like a bully on the block. And whether it's Nepal or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or Pakistan, and even now with China, which is larger in size, the Indian attitude has been as if they are the successors to the Raj. That won't work in the 21st century, Asian century, where people are talking of a rise. And I remember what Allama Iqbal said 90 years ago, Dekh mashriq se ubarte hue suraj ko dekh. See the sun rising in the east. So we should all be part of the Asian century, even China, Pakistan, India, and other countries. And collectively, I think we can be among the best and the brightest in the third world, if not the entire world.
Now, in India, the question is being asked, to what extent is your Prime Minister motivated, A, by the serious and deeply worrying economic condition of the country, and secondly, by the fairly dramatic resurgence of Tehreek-e-Taliban terrorism?
Well, that are aspects which do influence decision making, and obviously any government or any prime minister would like to diffuse fronts. And thankfully, that way we don't see any conventional threat or significant military threat from the eastern side, from the Indian side, because we are both nuclear powers and the balance of terror works. The threat from India is of hybrid warfare, information warfare, and the Indian attempt to demonize Pakistan at all fora, and which we respond very effectively. As you remember, when Jai Shankar said something in the UN Security Council last month in New York, he got a befitting response from Bilawal as foreign minister, and it became a tit for tat. So we feel that we should go beyond that, and if they're going to be serious, substantive talks with Kashmir, and remember, Mr. Thakur, if you don't have Kashmir, it's like having the Prince of Denmark. You can't have Hamlet without the Prince of Denmark. So, you know, when we have this relationship, Kashmir remains at the core, the heart of this continuing yawning chasm between Pakistan and India, the relationship. And you've got to move on, then you've got to take it head on.
Let me put you the Indian government's position, and I'm sure you already know it very well. The position is that talks with Pakistan are not possible whilst your country continues to support and facilitate terror against India. And in particular, there's anger in India that not enough has been done by Pakistan to bring the perpetrators of the 2008 terror attack in Bombay to justice. Your own federal agency head, Tariq Khuza, writing in Dawn, has provided total proof of the extent to which Pakistan is aware that Pakistani people resident and living in Pakistan were involved, and yet very little has been done to bring them to justice. To what extent would Pakistan be willing to take steps to overcome this problem so that the bigger issue of Kashmir, trade, and the other differences can be resolved? To what extent can you take a couple of meaningful steps to overcome this reservation?
Look here, if individuals of different countries are involved in acts of terrorism, you can't blame the state for that. If that was the logic, then after 9/11, there were 19 9/11 hijackers, 15 of them from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia should have been in the dock to accuse that. And in any case, the issue of cross-border terrorism is more or less dead or buried. You have barbed wire all across in line of control in India-Pakistan border in Punjab. There's no, or also in Sindh. So there's no such issue as such. And then neither the Indian Army chief has accused Pakistan of cross-border terrorism. And some of the individuals involved have already been punished by the Pakistani courts and even sanctioned by the UN Security Council. And that's fine. And we've had this history of this kind of extremism and violence. And now if we start doing that, then we'll be putting RSS in the dock for being a terrorist organization, terrorizing their own citizens in the name of religion. So I think that, instead of just trial by allegation, we should talk on facts rather than just opinions. And the facts are the official mantra of India.
I don't want to deflect our discussion into a discussion about terror because that would take us down the wrong road. But I'm simply asking a very simple question. Can meaningful steps be taken to tackle some of the people identified by Tarek Khoza himself? I'm just sticking to him, so that the Indian reservation on talking can be overcome. Because if your Prime Minister is serious about talks, then you need to find some way of addressing the reservation on the Indian side so that those talks are possible. Don't go into details, but is he willing to see a way through the reservations India has so that the talks he wants can start?
Mr. Thapar, please don't forget that we have a gentleman by the name of Commander Kulbhushan Yadav, who is not just a spy, but who was a terrorist, who was a self-confessed terrorism, who committed crimes of terrorism on Pakistani soil at the behest of the Indian intelligence. So, this kind of tit for tat, we have got to move beyond that. And I think, thank God that in Afghanistan, we are no longer in a debilitating proxy war. And I think Pakistan and India have matured to go beyond that trial by allegation or those kind of accusations. The substantive issues are that basically we have to reach some sort of a modus vivendi, as I mentioned, on the basis of reciprocity. And actually, we have been at the receiving end of terrorism ourselves. In the last 20 years, what we have faced is over 85,000 people killed, children, women and men, soldiers and civilians. And we have also fought a very successful inland war on terrorism. In fact, today we say the biggest national security challenge to Pakistan is internally generated terrorism or some terrorism that comes from the western border, not from the eastern border as of now. What eastern border does support financially some of the terrorist groups in Balochistan, for example.
Let's not get locked in terror. That is a discussion that India-Pakistan repeatedly have, and it repeatedly ends in a fractious argument between both people. Let's avoid that.
Correct.
I want to stick to the central subject, which is in fact that interview that was given by Prime Minister Sharif to Al Arabiya, where he clearly was reaching out to India. Let me ask you, because we're coming to the end, has there been any response from the Indian government that you, as chairman of the National Assembly's Defense Committee, are aware of? I ask because the Indian Express on its front page yesterday, when it reported the interview, began by saying that the remarks are being seen in Delhi as conciliatory. I don't know where the Express got that from, but I wonder whether you're aware of any response from the Indian side.
Not formally as such, but now I'll give you a journalistic guess, because I've been a journalist before I joined politics. And incidentally, I'm chairman of the Senate Defense Committee, which is, of course, also a member of Parliament. That probably, I think, some back channel communication would have been exchanged, and there would have been smiles or emojis on the WhatsApp or whatever, conveyed also that we are looking at it. I think that both sides are treading very cautiously, given the sensitivity of the Pakistan-India relationship. But I'm sure that this is being seen as a positive gesture and as a sign that India would take seriously and respond accordingly. So let's wait and see.
And what is the response in your own country to the interview given by your Prime Minister? And in particular, what is the response from Imran Khan's Tehreek-e-Pakistan?
Tehreek-e-Insaf, there has been some criticism of that. I think especially on this poor choice of words, and I think they have criticized to some extent. I've not seen any personal statement from Mr. Imran Khan himself, but from some of his colleagues, there has been criticism on the social media. So that's, I think that was to be expected. But remember that the Kashmir issue is too big for any one prime minister or any one army chief or any one political leader to take decisions on their own. It has to be a consensual approach with the support of all the stakeholders in Pakistan. And I'm reminding you, I was reading that book of Shyam Saran, the former Foreign Secretary of India, how India views the world. And he mentioned that when under Manmohan Singh and Musharraf, when they almost came too close to an agreement, it was scuttled by the Indian security establishment, i.e. RAW and the Indian military. So that's in the book. So these things are there. So we have to tread very carefully when it comes to there, so that when there's reciprocity based on equality and the issues like Kashmir are on the front burner rather than the back burner, then the process can work effectively. Otherwise, it'll be a non-starter.
My last question. I believe two Pakistani journalists, Javed Chaudhry and Hamid Mir, and I believe that, in fact, what I'm about to say they reported they got from General Bajwa. They have claimed that General Bajwa told them that in back channel discussions when he was in the saddle, India and Pakistan agreed to discuss the possibility of freezing the Kashmir issue for 20 years. A, can you confirm that General Bajwa said this and that this was discussed on the back channel? And secondly, could this be part of the explanation for Prime Minister Sharif's opening and reaching out in that interview?
I don't think so. Would be unacceptable if General Bajwa made that suggestion formally in a meeting to freeze the Kashmir issue for 20 years. I think it's not worth any army chief's salt to even suggest that. He would have been fired on the spot. There's no way that can be. It can be a personal view ex post facto when he is no longer in service, when he's doffed his uniform and he's in retirement. So those things you can have the luxury of saying that. Such a thought would be totally unacceptable and repugnant to what all that we stand for on Kashmir. And as I said, no person in Pakistan, whether it's a four-star general as army chief or a prime minister or a political leader, can even think of doing that. That will be the end of that person's at least official role, because that is neither the public policy nor the stated policy, and neither does it represent the national interests of Pakistan nor the aspirations of the people of Pakistan or of Kashmir, which are very close to our heart and it's part of our DNA on foreign policy.
I thank you for that clarification, Senator Hussain. In particular, I also want to thank you for confirming that in your belief, Prime Minister Sharif's sentiments and the reaching out in that interview to Al Arabiya is serious. Secondly, for pointing out that there's a feeling in Islamabad that the time has come for the relationship to improve, and that's why the Prime Minister is taking an initiative. And finally, for that very interesting answer you gave, that what you're looking for from the UAE is facilitation along the lines of what happened when the ceasefire of 2003 was renewed and made effective in 2021, not mediation. And I won't carry on a further discussion, but I'll simply point out for the audience that when I suggested to you, could restoration of statehood be sufficient to start the process rather than waiting for revocation of the abrogation of Article 370, you didn't say no. You came up with a very interesting answer, although sadly we lost you for 30 seconds in between, which keeps a window of hope open. And that window is always important in the relationship between your country and mine. I thank you for the time you've given me, and I thank you for fully explaining without reservations how you view that interview and how you view the relationship. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All the best for 2023.
And to you too, a very happy New Year.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.